What's up, everybody? Everybody knows what time it is. We are in the playoffs in the wild card right now. And man, I'm ready to get this thing started. I hope everybody has enjoyed the season. Been some crazy games, some outcomes I didn't expect. Wanted to break down the wild card and, of course, I guess go through some awards and maybe possibly look at some stats and break down some of the rules for uh, the playoffs this year. So just give me a second. I want to make sure that everybody can see the Twitch. And we will get started. Hope y'all are enjoying your Tuesday. And I'm ready to see some fucking wild card games. This is going to be live.
The newest releases for Nintendo Switch. My way to play.
What's up, everybody, man? I hope y'all are enjoying the day. And like I said, this will be the wild card show, getting into the playoffs. I'm really looking forward to breaking down what this playoffs is going to look like for each week. As I said, I'm gonna do my best to not break down my game. I feel like I just don't want to be in that position where I'm having to break down my game itself. But not that it's an issue. I feel like I could make that assumption of what a game is going to turn out to be based on who I play. But at the same time, man, we're in the playoffs and it is exciting, and I am just ready to see who is going to make it out of this first round. We do have some new guys that have made it to the playoffs this year that weren't in the playoffs in the last Madden. Um, one of them is the Vikings owner, Herman McRae. The other one is going to be Chuck with the Packers, and I believe the Giants as well, as well as the new Jags owner, who's came in and been lights out, of course, this season. Played the game, has been playing, I mean, exceptional all season. Currently sitting undefeated. Of course, you see this game about to be popping up with the Steelers and Browns. So I'm gonna give a prediction on each game and what I think is going to happen as far as who's going to win what. Um, this is going to be exciting. I really hope that all these games get streamed. Um, you know, I prefer them to be streamed. I mean, if I feel like the guys that aren't in the playoffs deserve to be able to listen to the game or see the games. I think that's kind of important as far as the league itself. Everybody wants to be a part of the playoffs. Everybody wants to see it. So this should be exciting. I don't know the score outcome, which was something that I kind of planned on doing, but hey, I'm just glad for the simple fact that we're in the playoffs. Really quick, just wanted to break down the rules again as far as the playoffs themselves. The fourth down rule does not apply in the second half. What that means is there is no such thing as a fourth down rule in the second half of each game. If you're up 20, you want to go for it on fourth down, not stopping you. Same thing when it comes to play calling. Guy comes out and he runs, same plays on you, whatever, and you can't stop it. That's on you. Hey, we're in the playoffs, and everybody at this point is trying to win. Everybody is trying to get to the next stage, and so those two rules fourth down rule does not exist in the second half, the play calling rule does not exist at all. So, if any guys that are playing in the playoffs this year that have a concern when it comes to the rules or play calling and all that, don't come screaming to myself. Don't come screaming in the chat because I'm telling you I'm not going to help you. Before I give my breakdown on who I think is going to do what, I will do the yearly awards. Looks like the Fournette turned out to take the MVP this year. I think the Jags was probably leaning more towards, or probably would have preferred it to have been Nick Foles just so he can get that star trait that he's been desperately asking for. The Giants with Barkley and the 49ers with Coleman has definitely had a decent year, and something you don't see often, a defensive player in that MVP voting or MVP spot with Myles Garrett. The Vikings was in there with Dalvin Cook as well as myself with Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Baker Mayfield, and Lamar Jackson. Um, as far as Offensive Player of the Year award and all of that, I'm really not going to speak on it. I'm really just going to flip through each one of them. And so try to give you guys a little bit of time to see it. But again, it's been a hell of a season. Some guys have been some crazy games that happened this year. Man, I've some guys that didn't make the playoffs. I actually thought they would in the very beginning. Of course, there's two guys in particular I can think of. Not going to necessarily call them out. One of them is just an unfortunate position where they had to, unfortunately switch teams, which I do think still would have actually made the playoffs. But and the other just folded all season. Which again I had mentioned earlier in the season that those, when it comes to teams and who you play, your schedule's going. When that schedule flipped, it flipped for some guys, and ultimately you saw the result at the end of the season. Um, but with that, just again for you guys that are just currently watching, I'm just going through the player, the annual awards for the year, and for each position that it shows as far as offense and defensive players. I'll try to do this as well for the Pro Bowl. I would like to have two guys on for the Pro Bowl show right before the Super Bowl itself. So I'm going to try to get that scheduled as well. And then before the conference championships, I will be doing my best to try to get, um, if not one from each side of the conferences, hopefully all four that play in the conference championships up to the Super Bowl. And so, but yeah, this has been an exciting year, and man, I hope you guys have really enjoyed it. Real quick, gonna go over to NFL records. I'm always curious as far as who has broken what. Um, I really go by the game. I really care less about what you did for an entire season when it comes to Madden. The biggest reason I say that is because the game is so OP. It's really not that hard to break an NFL record as far as when it comes to an entire season. A game, however, that's a totally different scenario or situation, and it does look like Lamar Jackson does currently hold the NFL record for most passing yards, which is really interesting to me because I feel like Jeremy does more running than he does anything. Rushing touchdowns, the Jags. I'm sorry, passing touchdowns. The Jags owns the record twice over with Nick Foles. Not surprised with that. And then rushing yards, Saquon Barkley. Touchdowns. Looks like the Packers had a game where he had 8 touchdowns. Who the hell did he play to get 8 touchdowns rushing in a game? That's insane. Receiving yards. Again, I do not know who the heck Jeremy played to put up these kind of stats with Lamar Jackson, and I think that's Kendall Raymond is what his name is. I could be wrong. Uh, and then of course the same guy for receiving touchdowns. The catches one, that's one that's really kind of you can it's really not a hard record to beat. It's one of those where I don't think people are really paying attention to defensive sacks in a game. Not surprised that Colton owns this record. He's typically been a real heavy as far as a sack leader guy, defensive picks in a game. Another one it's not impossible to break, but a guy has to be really stupid throwing the football. Um, but yeah, so those are just a little breakdown as far as those stats themselves. Just looking at teams as far as who did what offense and defense. Just for the total of the year, looks like for offense, the Jags, Giants, Browns, 49ers, and I guess we stop at the Packers. Look like they had some of the stronger offenses this year. And then strongest defenses this year is also Jags, Vikings, Patriots, Browns, 49ers. And so you see some similar names at the top, and the reason I say that is because ultimately it kind of lets you know who is in the playoffs, and it makes sense why certain guys are in the playoffs. I mean, it's just what it is. So, red zone efficiency. Again, you see similar names just at the top. This is not again, penalties is one of those things on Madden where it's like you can't really control. As far as the turnover difference, looks like the Jags, myself, the 49ers, Vikings, Steelers. Surprisingly, you have a team up there with the Bucks that isn't in the playoffs that is didn't do too bad as far as his turnover difference with the football. And when you flip that, I'm always curious as who had the worst turnover difference each season. And if I flip it, I'm almost certain that it's an NFC guy that I know, and it's probably Ben. Oh my God, it is Ben. Ben with the Saints with a negative 36. You got to get that turnover ratio. You got to get that switched up for yourself. But those are the team stats for the league. I will go over something that one other number that I do like to look at is the standings entirely for the league at the end of each season. Of course, Jags ended it with an undefeated season. Him between the Jags and 49ers, they both clinched the home field advantage as far as the playoffs, and with that bye week as well as myself. And it looks like I'm not really sure who else has a. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the Jags. Points for as far as this season, the Jags put up a staggering, 870 points this season, behind the 49ers, the Patriots, Packers, Steelers, and the Giants. Again, all names that are all names that are in the playoffs. I mean, that's just how it works out. But the points against looks like I've given up the least amount of points this season, followed by the Steelers, Raiders, Jags, 49ers, Vikings, and Browns. Again, all of these names, all of these names right here, every single one of them are in the playoffs. All of them. I don't think there's anybody else. The Giants is here, but keep in mind he's probably got the worst team in the playoffs right now. So kudos to the Giants for making it to the playoffs with a team that's not very good. He did a lot with Saquon Barkley. It does look like the Steelers did. I'm sorry, the Browns did clinch this division. I'm not sure why it has him above the Browns. AFC South, everybody can see that the Jags and Titans, and myself, and then the AFC West, the Raiders, which honestly is what I kind of expected at the end of the season. I am going to post my Excel sheet that I sent out as far as whose record would be what at the end of the season. And from what I saw this morning, I was only off on one team, and that was actually Brad Peters. And the only reason I was off on his team was because ultimately just whatever happened during the season, he switched over teams. But everybody else, I was pretty fucking close. So, but yeah, so you see the NFC North, Vikings and Packers, NFC South with the Falcons, NFC East with the Eagles and the Giants, as well as the NFC West with the 49ers. So, let's get to who is going to do what. I tried to make this show as quick as possible because there's really not a whole lot to break down. It really just kind of comes down to games. So if you give me just a second here, I'm going to look at the chat and see who's saying what, and I'll give y'all just a little bit of my perspective as far as who's going to do what this season. and who's going to do what this playoffs, and we'll go from there. All right, Titans and Raiders. I know everybody so far that is in the chat has seen my breakdown as far as who I thought would win this game. I do know that Corey, I do know that Corey did lose during the season to the Raiders, 27 to nothing. But the one thing I can say about Corey that's happened this season that, to be honest, I really haven't seen between too many guys or from too many guys this season, is whoever he lost to the next game, he came out so much better the second game. To give you an example, the first game, I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think it was when he played the Jags, the first game. I think the game ended, it was either 33 to 18 or something to that scenario. Um, he was actually up in that game in the start of it, 12 to nothing. Ended up losing 33 to 18. And then the next game, him and the Jags played. I saw the Jags had mentioned in the chat that Corey was actually up 38 to 37 in that game. I'm not sure if he threw a pick or whatever that happened that ultimately turned the score to, I think it was like 55-45 or something to that degree. But he plays people better the second time around, and that's the beauty of league. That's the beauty of having a league, versus head to head. Because at the end of the day, I could really care less what you did to me during the regular season. I'm going to learn from it, and the next time I play you, I'm going to have a better understanding of your game. Now, keep in mind the Raiders is solid. I think he's a really solid player. I think Richard Joe is a damn good player, as a matter of fact. And he's going to be a factor as far as these playoffs for sure. But I just think Corey is going to get a slight edge over him playing the second time. Um, it's hard to beat somebody twice in a season. It just is. Unless they just ultimately are just super trash. Um, Typically, if they're a really good player, it's hard to beat them the second time around. And I'm that's ultimately why I'm giving Corey the edge because the first game, he's really just learning the guy's style, and then he's kind of figuring out what his flaws are within that, and he plays better that second time around. Giants and Vikings. I just don't think Giants team is just strong enough. That's it. I think Travis Jackson is probably the better user. No offense to Herman at all. I think Travis Jackson is probably the better user in this game. I just think the Vikings are so strong, especially when it comes to the run and on defense, that at some point in this game, a turnover is going to cost him that he most likely can't control. Whether it's a fumble forced, whether it's a bad interception on a third and long that he needs. Ultimately, I think that's going to be the result of this game. Um, so I'm giving Vikings a slight edge. I do think Travis Jackson is probably the better user on a head-to-head basis, but ultimately, I think the Vikings wins this game. Steelers and Browns. Tristan has won back-to-back games against the Steelers. Both of those games were close. Both of those games, it was a touchdown or less in each game as far as the score themselves. But um, you talk about trying to beat somebody twice in a year. Imagine trying to beat someone three times in a year. At some point, I feel like the Steelers or Justin James is going to, figure it out, and I think this will be that game. I do think Tristan is the player that, he's probably got a little bit of edge as far as on a, you know, kind of in Justin's head a little bit, maybe, just because, you lose two close games back to back. It can be frustrating. I don't care what nobody says. Like, back to back close games to the same guy, it gets on your damn nerves. But ultimately, I just think in the playoffs, I'm only giving Justin the edge in this game because they've played twice already, and Justin has had three Super Bowl appearances. And so, just with that alone, the simple fact that he has been in the Super Bowl more times than none since he's been in our league, I'm definitely giving him the edge. Because that's how it works. You have guys that are, you know, they, you know, they'll start a season. You look at their record and go, he may not be that good, whatever, blah 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 blah. I don't think that's going to be the case. I just think that his playoff experience is going to um, it's going to ultimately um, be the difference in this game. They're very even as far as users. Both of them pass the ball. Both of them do a lot of things very similar on offense. But uh, at the end of the day, I do think Justin James pulls this game out. Packers and Eagles. This game right here was really hard to decide. Um, I kind of already knew that they were going to play each other. I think the hardest part about making the decision on this game was that both of them are really good players. Both of them have the ability to um, run the ball well. Both of them play really decent defense. Um, both of them can put up a lot of points. Uh, they are equally a great matchup with one another. Um, as far as why I gave Luke with the Eagles the the upper hand in this game, it's really one reason and one reason alone. It has everything to do with the fact that I've played both of them. So my uh, my decision on who wins this game had everything to do with the fact that I've played both users in the past, and I just think when it comes to the playoffs, um, I think Luke just has the upper hand. I think his the style of defense that he runs based on the offensive gameplay or the offensive style that Chuck runs, it's just not going to match up for him very well. And I think Chuck does better with close games. And I mean, I don't think it's going to be close. It could be, but I think that Luke may win this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns or more. But again, I do know Chuck's a great player. I could be wrong. I'm literally basing this on I've played both of these guys, and ultimately I just think Luke is the better user. And let me not say the better user. I think his strategy, style of play, ultimately is going to be the difference in this game. So that's why I made my picks, everybody. I'm so excited for these games to get started. This is what we play for. All these effing weeks that we've played, and everybody either talking mad mess in the chat, being upset about life, saying somebody is cheating, running the same play, oh, you're doing whatever and I can't score, blah, 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 blah. I don't really care about none of that stuff. I give it energy just because I'm commissioner and I feel like, it's kind of my job to step in every now and then. But ultimately, I genuinely don't care because at the end of the day, it is all about winning games and getting to this point. If you can't get to this point, then it's on you. At the end of the day, there's something about your style. And another reason why I bring that up is for one reason alone, or for another reason is what I should say. I've heard guys say that, well, look at all these teams, and as far as how good these teams are, the Giants overall, Travis Jackson, their overall on the game right now for his team is a 71. Let that marinate for a second. A 71 overall. 71. Not an 80, not an 85, nothing. A 71 overall, and he's made the playoffs. So when I hear the excuses about my team isn't very good, these players aren't very good, whatever it is, it's not real. It's not real because Travis Jackson just proved to me and everyone else in the league that at the end of the day, guess what? I took a shit team and I took them to the playoffs. Now, is he going to win this game? I really don't think so. But at the same time, I'm so glad to see someone take a team that is their overall not being that good. I mean, crap. The Raiders, the Raiders probably has one of the lower overall teams that are currently sitting in the playoffs right now as well. They've got some decent pieces, but the Giants. I mean, shoot. Besides Saquon Barkley, I don't know who they really call on when it comes to offense. So, but anyways, I'm really excited to see these games. Again, Titans, Vikings, Steelers, and Eagles, in my opinion, are going to win each of these games. Um, I really don't like being off when it comes to the playoff predictions. But again, it can happen. But that's my opinion as far as who does what. And so, man, I hope y'all enjoy the show. Again, I wanted to make this quick, and I will talk to y'all soon.